My name's Betsy McGinn, and I founded McGinn Ecom about 9 years ago after leaving Seventh Generation, where I started external e-commerce business partners at that time, which included drugstore.com and the Quincy family of sites like diapers.com, but largely Amazon, which was huge even then, but it was long before brands thought about jumping into that space around 2006. When I left, I really saw this need for brands to get advisory on how to go to Amazon.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. This is Mark Lucchese, also known as Mark at the Mic, and the voice you just heard has been called by her peers the guru of e-commerce. A lot of us may not know much about e-commerce, but hopefully by the end of this interview, we will have a better sense. My guest today, Betsy McGinn, author of The Amazon Roadmap, How Innovative Brands Are Reinventing the Path to Market. Betsy McGinn, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you, Mark, for inviting me. I'm glad we finally connected on this.
Yeah, I think we've been trying to do this for a while.
Yes, we have.
So it's great. You have been referred to as an e-commerce guru, all right? And I took that clip from one of your podcasts in the past, and I thought it was great to hear that. But before we find out how you earned the title of e-guru, right, I thought we would talk a little bit about how you got to Burlingame, how a little farm girl living in Western New York wound up here in Burlingame, California. Give me a little bit of the background, please.
Yeah. So, Mark, I grew up on a farm in Western New York, and I feel like from the day I was born, I had wanderlust. And so when I graduated from high school, I was 16, and it's because...
That's young.
It's young. And I loved my family, but I just really wanted to see the world. And so I graduated young. The first thing I did was I went to Belize that summer before Belize was a trending place to go.
Big time now. Did you go by yourself?
No, I went with a group. It was a church group, and we were doing work down there on building schools.
Great.
And that just kind of really set in motion all of sort of the path of my life, which... I lived in a lot of different cities in the U.S. for work and for college and grad school. And then eventually, when I ended up in Southern California, my first trip to San Francisco, I thought, oh, I found my place. I just loved Northern California so much. It really felt like the place that I was looking for. And I didn't move there immediately. I got transferred in my job to Chicago and eventually was able to make it back here and lived in the city for a few years.
About what age were you then?
I moved back here. I was about, let me think, 30 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you lived in Southern California for a while before you came up to Northern California.
I did. I lived in San Diego when it felt like a smallish town. That was really lovely. Yeah.
Were you there by yourself?
I was. Almost every place I lived was nowhere near my family. And I know we're going to get to talking about Brian, my husband.
Yes.
But I actually didn't meet him and get married till I was about 40 for the first time.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You're out here living in San Francisco.
Yep.
And you're single, right? How
Yep.
did Brian come along, your husband?
So I loved San Francisco, but one of the things that was really challenging about living in the city was being able to afford to buy property of any kind. And there is this way you can do it that's kind of a iffy thing where it's called tenancy in common, where you can partner with someone and you're on the same loan, and it presents like it's a condo, but it's not. You don't have separate loans for each of your units. So we bought this 2-unit house, this woman who I didn't know, we were just matched up through our realtors, and Brian is her brother.
Oh, my goodness.
So we met that way.
How interesting is that? That was in the city?
That was in the city.
You bought a place in the city?
Yeah.
Okay. Was Brian working in the city?
He was not. He was working. He had just moved up from Southern California to the South Bay. He's a tech guy, so he took a tech job there.
Yeah.
And he would just commute up to the city to help his sister work on things at our property. And about a year after we moved in, he asked me out, and we went on, probably by the third date, we knew we were going to get married.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you stayed there in the condo in the city for a while before coming down to Burlingame?
Yes.
How did you know about Burlingame?
Well, I have to be honest with you, I didn't want to leave the city, but the commute was killing Brian because his jobs will almost always be in the South Bay because he's an electrical
Right, so he was
engineer.
like a reverse tech commute, not coming to the city, but leaving the city, going down to Silicon Valley, I guess, right?
Yeah, and the commute just got worse and worse.
Yeah.
And so we decided to look on the peninsula, and we looked in places like Redwood City and others, San Carlos. But the place we really liked the best was Burlingame. And it actually didn't give that much of a commuting advantage when you think about how far down the peninsula it is. Not that far, but it really felt like the next place we should be, and we've been here now for 22 years.
And you have a home here in Burlingame, right?
We do, yeah.
Whereabouts?
We live just on the other side of El Camino Real near St. Catherine's Church.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right. So you've been living here in Burlingame for how many years?
For 22 years.
Great.
Not always in that house. We first lived on Palm Drive, which is right near the fire station.
Oh, yes, right.
Yeah.
Great.
And then we moved over to this neighborhood about 11 years ago.
Yeah, it's a great neighborhood, isn't it?
It is. And we've gotten to know the nuns, of course.
Yes. So you and Brian are now happily married, living in Burlingame. Do you engage in any activities in Burlingame?
A lot, actually, especially when we first moved here. We had always been fairly active in the politics of Burlingame. We've worked on the high-speed rail issue as it was, planning to come through Burlingame with raised berms. We have worked on other issues that were important to the city. We've campaigned for city council candidates. And we've done fun things like, I don't know if you remember this, Mark, but because this was more than 10 years ago, but Charles Volz, who is...
I remember Charles well. We were in Rotary together.
He's such a legacy member of this community who we miss greatly. But he had started a community bike ride on Saturday mornings.
I don't think I knew that. That's Charles.
That's so Charles, right?
Yeah, that's Charles.
Right? And so Brian and I used to be, like crossing guards and do whatever we could to help with that. And so we would always engage in activities like that. I would say less lately, again, mostly because of my work travel schedule. And, quite frankly, I think the burnout of some of the issues like high-speed rail is exhausting.
Yeah, it's going on and on and on. In fact, we had somebody from high-speed rail speak at the Rotary recently, and it's targeted for like 2032 or 33. I mean, holy smokes, I hope I'm still alive, okay?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So you've settled in. You come over to Burlingame Avenue much? You're a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, all the time. I don't know if you know this, but we have 3 dogs.
Yes, I knew that.
Yeah.
Yep. So do you walk the dogs on the Ave, or you walk them over to Washington Park or something like that?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
And we've always had a dog or two that's been kind of like the mayor of Burlingame.
Yeah.
One of them, Wilson.
Great.
Wilson was our last one who passed during COVID.
Oh,
and he would just bring so much joy to people on the avenue. He would just go up to anybody. He's the happiest dog ever. And in the Historical Society newsletter, when he passed, Jennifer put a picture of him with the sisters from St. Catherine's.
No kidding.
Who just loved Wilson.
Oh, shoot.
Because he was such the mayor.
Yeah,
and
I'll have to ask Jennifer for a copy of that. That is great.
And then now we have Ruthie, who walks downtown with a stuffed animal in her mouth at all times.
Yeah.
And it just brings
So
such
it sounds
joy
like
to
you and
people.
Brian get down to the Avenue quite a bit.
Yeah, he goes down almost every day.
Yeah, has a little coffee or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Does he have a bunch of cronies that he meets with and they
Not
solve
yet.
the world's problems? Okay, none of that. Okay.
But we know some of those cronies.
Oh, yeah.
And we just, it's just because he's still working and so he doesn't have the leisure time to spend with them. But I know that's going to happen sooner or later.
Absolutely.
He's a little social butterfly.
Yeah. Okay, so tonight's Friday night. It's date night for you guys, and you're going to go out to dinner on the Avenue. Where would you go? You have a favorite?
We do. We're probably the most boring daters. Grapevine.
Yeah, always packed.
Always packed.
Busy. Yeah.
Always busy. They just have the best salads and sandwiches and crepes and, simple food.
Right.
Yeah, there's great food on the Avenue, but I think we often fall back to
you go to a favorite place. You just like it and you feel comfortable there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What about shops or cafes or anything like that? Any place you like to go, like Barnes & Noble a favorite or anything like that, or Starbucks?
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad we now have a bookstore back on the Avenue.
I know, we really missed it when Books Inc. left. It was a real void, and it's good to have Barnes & Noble here.
It has. I mean, I feel like so many local people miss that because it was a place where we could still support a bookstore, a local bookstore, and keep them in business. And so it was so sad when it felt like we failed them.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah.
Are you happy here in Burlingame? Is like this is going to be the last stop, you think?
I don't think it's going to be the last stop,
Really?
but we have been happy here. And even though I said I was resistant to leave the city because I loved it so much, one of the things I didn't realize, which has been a complete joy for us, is that you actually have a summer when you live in Burlingame. You are not shrouded in fog from June through August.
Yeah. Yep.
And I have loved that.
I know that famous Mark Twain saying, the coldest winter he ever spent was the summer he was in San Francisco or something like that.
Yes.
That goes, and that's so true.
Looking forward to
Hey,
it.
do you ever go over to the farmer's market?
You know, I do. Not as often as I used to. I try to get there early, so I probably don't get a lot of the big community flavor when everybody shows up. But I like to get there early and
Do you browse interesting and unique product, though? I mean, you're in this business. Do you ever see anything that's kind of whatever, I don't know, that can make it or not make it, and get a sense of that, or are you just not interested?
It's not that I'm not interested, but I think a lot of it is still very much in the homegrown phase.
Yep.
And a lot of great brands do start at farmers markets. I've worked with many of them. When I was at the Carmel Farmers Market a couple of years ago, there was a salad dressing that I thought, oh my God, these people need to commercialize this and not just bring it to the farmers market. So it is truly a really viable place for products to get started.
Yeah.
I just can't say that I'm as conversant as I should be with what's going on at the Burlingame one.
That's okay. You go down there just to get away from things sometimes, too.
And to get the
relax
best fruit and vegetable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the produce.
Do you ever go over to Broadway, Burlingame? Any of the shops or restaurants there?
We do, and we did more when we lived at our old house on Palm because we were kind of smack in the middle.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we loved, there's a coffee shop there that we love that I don't think exists anymore.
Was it it's not Piccolo.
Yes, it was Piccolo.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're there or not. I should get over to Broadway myself and see what's happening. So, okay, when you're not on Burlingame Avenue, and I know Brian plays golf. I know he's a golfer.
He is a golfer.
What do you like to do? What's a hobby for you?
We're big hikers. So we tend, almost everything that we tend to do for leisure is outdoors. If it's not hiking, it's something else. We have twin 14-year-old nieces, so we try to participate
Twins,
in
wow.
what they're going through. Yeah, 2 girls. And one of them is a competitive diver, so we're going to her event on Sunday.
So they're close by.
They're in Redwood City.
Oh,
yeah,
terrific.
Yeah. And the other is a volleyball aficionado, so we're going to see her on Saturday. So I'd say between family and, the dogs and our outdoor sports, those are probably some of our top picks. But we also do, I don't know if you've ever done the Peninsula Speaker Series.
Not yet. Kathy has. My wife has done several. I have not accompanied her. Usually she goes with a fellow teacher that she taught with for many years. But it's a great series.
It is a great series. They've had great speakers, and we've tried to get back into concerts after COVID because I feel like a lot of our, not just ours, but everybody as a community, a lot of our social events fell away, and you have to make an effort to get back into them. Another one I want to give a plug to is the San Mateo High School Drama Club.
They're great.
They are so great, and we always try to go to their plays.
Yep, they are great. They have a wonderful reputation as well. Burlingame High does a nice job, too. So, anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Betsy, we're going to park that now, and we're going to get into what this is all about. We're going to talk about that title of e-commerce guru, okay? I got a couple of things here I want to mention. Your book, The Amazon Roadmap, was published in 2018. Is that correct?
19.
19. Okay, so that's what, about 5 years ago?
Yes.
I'm doing the math right? Okay. So I took a stat from that book about online grocery sales. We're expected to be about $100 billion by 2022?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So now we're in 2024.
Right.
Do you have a number for me, what it is now?
I do. I'm sure it's no surprise to you that COVID accelerated the growth of that segment. So while there's always varying opinions on what the actual stat is. The most common number I'm finding these days is 185 million in 2023, projected to be 219 billion in 2024.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's a lot of action, isn't it?
That's a lot of action.
Boy,
Yeah.
oh boy. So you founded your business, and again, I'm going to give you a date. I hope I got these things right. McGinn Ecom in 2014?
Yes.
Great. Prior to that, you were the 7th generation first e-commerce channel director.
Yes.
All right. How long had you been working for 7th generation when that all happened? Had you been there for a while or what?
So I joined 7th Gen in 2006, and almost instantly there was a need for someone to start paying a little bit of attention to e-commerce. And because I was on the West Coast, which is where Amazon is and drugstore.com was, subsequently been bought, I said, I'll do it. And it just became part of my job of managing sales in the West.
Break it down for me. What is a channel director?
So eventually what it evolved into is not just being a tiny piece of my business, but the entire e-commerce channel where I called on every major e-commerce player. So drugstore.com, amazon.com, diapers.com, soap.com at that time. And it became such a huge piece of our business long before consumer product brands thought about going online, that it really needed its own director to have that kind of attention.
Were you cold calling or were you going and knocking on doors? How did all that happen?
That's a good question. No, not cold calling. Those partners really wanted our brand. 7th Generation, as you may or may not know, was the leading non-toxic cleaning products, chlorine-free baby diaper brand.
Yeah, it's big.
Big.
Yeah, it's a
now
great
owned by
seller.
Unilever. So this was pre-Unilever. But there was interest in it because, natural products or more green or better for you products really started to come on the map at that time. And these retailers or e-tailers wanted them. So at that time, you could actually see live people at Amazon. That's not so much the case anymore. Everything is a lot more automated.
Yeah, I bet.
But we had a great partnership with them where we actually did a couple of PBS commercials with them at that time, and we had a whole small team of people that managed our products, everything from the merchandising aspect to the in-stock aspect at Amazon. And that, again, is a very different business model than there is now, which has become a lot more streamlined and automated. And hence the need for someone with the skill set that I have, because it's not as seamless as it used to be.
Yeah. Okay, I think I know what that is. All right. All right. Okay, so here's a quote I'm going to take that I got from the book, I think. Mm-hmm. While you were at 7th Generation, I quote now, you pioneered 7th Generation's e-com strategy and created a thriving partnership with Amazon, right?
Yes.
So I just have to let you know that my wife also has a thriving partnership with Amazon, right? So much that I created an acronym for it called DAD, D-A-D, Kathy's Daily Amazon Delivery. Okay, Kathy, Dad is here. Okay, I'll come get it. You know what I mean? That's my one and only joke for today. All right. Okay, the first line of chapter 1, or the first sentence of chapter 1 in your book reads, "E-commerce is different."
Yes.
Why? Can you explain that?
Yes, there are a lot of reasons. So let's see, where should I start? Well, a couple of things that I'll start with a couple of things that have tripped brands up as they tried to go to e-commerce. One, the mistake of thinking it's as seamless and easy to do business with Amazon as it is to shop from Amazon, very much like Kathy does. We get lulled into this sense that it's a simple experience to just throw your products up online and they'll do just fine. The other thing that we miss is that there are whole different financial dynamics. There are whole different shelf dynamics. The idea of a product that costs maybe $5.99 on the shelf ever being profitable online when all of a sudden you're factoring in shipping and other fees just isn't feasible. So all of a sudden you're thinking about, what is the pack configuration? What is the pricing? What do I need to do to make this profitable in a different way than I do at the shelf? And those are just a few of the major points that are different. And then you can start to get into the minutia that really refines what makes your strategy successful.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the book again, and I'm going to read a couple of more quotes or phrases that were in there, and I highlighted them. Vendor central, seller central, third-party seller, sales velocity, product reviews, buy box, and pay to play. That's just to name a few. So if it's okay with you, and if it's not, we'll figure something else out. What if we work out a little scenario here? I have created a barbecue sauce that I want to get on Amazon, right? It's called Mark at the Mike's Amazing Barbecue Sauces, mild, medium, and hot. I want to sell my sauces on Amazon. They've done well at the farmers markets and things like that. I'm just a small guy. I'm not even in the grocery stores, okay? What do I do? Can you help me with that a little bit? Am I even going to get on? Do I need a ton of money to make this happen or what?
Well, the one thing that you said that is really such a true path these days, you said, I'm not even in the grocery stores yet. A lot of the really successful brands on Amazon, food and beverage, health and beauty, almost any category you can think of, often start exclusively on e-commerce and grow a huge business there before they get to the shelf.
Really? I don't know how they get discovered, though. Do you know what I mean? How are they going to find my Mark at the Mike barbecue sauce?
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
The one thing, though, that is super different than when I first started my business in 2014 is there are no unicorn brands. You don't get just discovered on Amazon. There is work involved in terms of making your product right for the consumer and right for you in terms of the financial means, but also doing advertising on the platform and all of these different tactics that make your strategy complete. But let's back up to the beginning.
Yeah.
So I'll just point out one brand that did a really great job. It was one of my first clients called Nut Pods. And Nut Pods was one of the first better-for-you non-dairy creamers. They saw a need for a healthier alternative and also an alternative to like soy milk and almond milk, which was watery and not a creamy consistency at all.
Are we talking a refrigerated item here? Or is it powdered?
It's refrigerated and shelf stable. Okay. So it's in a Tetra Pak.
Got it.
Yep. And they, when I was working with them, they equally went to grocery stores and to Amazon. And they found that by doing all of the right things on Amazon with marketing, having the right product in the right pack, having the right price, and their velocity of sales on Amazon was so much greater than they ever anticipated that they decided to put their store strategy on hold for a couple of years before they even went into a store. And we're a huge multi-million-dollar brand before, and we're able to leverage that success on Amazon into stores. But it wasn't a unicorn situation, but it was a brand that it had a need by the consumer. It was positioned well. They did the work to make sure that the pack met the consumer's needs, that the price was right, and that they did the marketing to back it up so that they could get in front of consumers' eyes.
Okay, so where would an ad be found? On Instagram or Facebook or on Amazon itself?
On Amazon itself.
How, though? You just clicking along and all of a sudden it'll come up, or what?
No. So if you are, let's go back to this non-dairy creamer. Well, why don't we go to Mark's
Amazing Barbecue Sauces?
Amazing Barbecue Sauces, yeah. So especially if you're a new brand, you're going to want to advertise. So what that means is you, as a new brand, would put your product listing up. You have this beautiful listing showing your product, title, bullet points, some secondary images so the consumers can really be familiar with your product. But how are they supposed to get there?
Yeah, I have no idea. Correct.
So you, as Mark's Barbecue Sauce, will buy keywords like barbecue sauce. And then whenever a consumer searches for barbecue sauce, then your ad will pop up if you win the pay-per-click price of that ad. And it pops up right at the top of the page. So let's say you are a consumer shopping for barbecue sauce, whether you're looking for Mark's or not, you're going to see that ad. And they say it takes about 7 times to see a product before you're interested enough to click on it and buy it. And so that repetition of getting consumer eyes on your brand eventually leads to the conversion you need to grow your brand.
Go back to that little pay for something ad.
Pay per click.
Yeah. What does that mean?
So you decide as the brand what you want to advertise, or what words you want to use to advertise. And in this case, you chose the words barbecue sauce.
Right.
So you decide, you go into Amazon's advertising portal, you set up a campaign using those words, and whenever a consumer clicks on the ad is the only time you pay.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Okay.
it still means they could click on it and not buy the product, but it also means you don't have that ad and you're just paying for the space without some return on the investment, and that's the click.
Right. And then I would have to hire like an advertising sort of agency to put that whole glossy picture on Amazon, or what? I mean, is that how that works?
A lot of brands do it internally, especially if they're young, scrappy brands, because Amazon has set up some automated advertising tools to enable you as a brand to do it yourself. Now, don't get me wrong, you can't go to Amazon with no money and no intention of putting effort into your listings or advertising or merchandising activities and be successful. But there are a lot of brands that are scrappy enough and nimble enough to do it themselves rather than hiring agencies. Sometimes those brands get so big on Amazon, then they hire an agency to manage not just the advertising, but the day-to-day issues that pop up with Amazon, which are frequent.
Okay, so suppose I get on Amazon. What's Amazon going to expect from me as far as inventory? Do they want X amount of cases shipped in right away, or is what I mean? Is there a minimum?
Yeah.
Or how does that work?
This would be a good time to talk about two of the terms that you mentioned, vendor central and seller central.
Great. Okay.
So there are different ways you can sell on Amazon. So vendor central is when Amazon actually buys your product, owns it just like a store was, just like
Molly
Stone's, right? And then sells your product to the consumer. They pay you as the brand on that 30 or 60-day agreement that you have, and the product essentially is theirs. They set the price. You just, you still have to ante up money for advertising and other activities, but it's a very traditional retail model. Now, Seller Central is entirely different. It's called a third-party platform. And in this case, Amazon doesn't own your inventory. You own your inventory. You list your product on Amazon's platform as the seller. And then you can use Amazon's warehouse and shipping expertise to ship the product. So, Mark, you would ship in a pallet of barbecue sauce. It would sit in Amazon's fulfillment center, and then they would sell it to the consumers and pay you as they sell it, not for that whole pallet.
Got it.
It's almost like a consignment model.
Right.
When you think about it.
So would that model be better than the other one? I mean, the seller versus the vendor?
So they both have their advantages.
Yeah.
But one thing is that on Vendor Central, you can't be a small brand. Amazon kicked about 20,000 small brands off of Vendor Central a couple of years ago over to the Seller Central platform. Only the largest brands tend to be on the Vendor Central platform.
And largest, you mean because they have high sales velocity? They're getting volume, or what?
They're getting volume. They tend to be a lot of the conventional consumer product brands we know well. So it's not really for startup brands. So as startup brands, you would be on Seller Central.
Okay. For how long? As long as I want to be?
As long as you want to be. Some of the most successful brands, again, I'll go back to Nut Pods. They've been invited by Amazon to move their brand over to Vendor Central for years, and they refuse. And you might say, why? Well, on Seller Central, you as the seller get to control the price. You get to control how much inventory you send in. You don't depend on Amazon to place purchase orders. You get to control the advertising and how much you spend on it. You have so much more control over your brand on the Seller Central platform that's why a lot more brands are using that and not in any way having FOMO about not being on the Vendor Central platform.
Yeah. So I guess after a while, if you're having success on Amazon, you can take that criteria of your sales volume and stuff and go to a supermarket and see a buyer and hopefully get into the store as well.
It's a great way to leverage it, yes. And some of the important things, though, are when you're on Amazon, you need to make sure that you don't have low pricing. And that's, again, a benefit of Seller Central. You get to set the pricing. You don't want it to be lower than a retailer would want to sell your product for, because retailers respect the sales volume and the reviews you get on Amazon. What they don't respect is when they see it at a low price that they can't afford to sell it off their shelves.
Yeah, you mentioned the reviews in the book, and you mentioned how important the reviews are.
Yes.
Something to the effect that it's one of the best places to get a review on a product if you just want to see what a product's about.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always see those reviews, but I always kind of wondered how valid they were. So they're pretty straight up.
They're pretty straight up. Amazon is rigorous about capturing fake reviewers, fake review applications, anything that can generate any kind of damaging content for a brand or fake content against a competitive brand. And so, in fact, a lot of the review tactics that we used to use in the past just aren't even available anymore. That's how hard they've worked to make those legitimate.
Yeah.
And that's why consumers trust it. 76% of consumers say that they trust user-generated content over brand-generated content. And that's what reviews are, user-generated content.
I'm going to place my product on Amazon. Am I going to see somebody, or is it just all done on the computer? Do you know what I mean?
It's all done on the computer.
So there's no appointment that you make to go see Amazon at headquarters or anything like that?
Nope, nothing. It's all through their Seller Central automated platform. You simply apply to be a seller as the brand. You're the brand and you're the seller. You apply, and there is a process you have to go through where you have to show some credentials, put in your tax ID information, and then you get approved, and then it's up to you to start setting up the items and getting them.
So I better have the product ready to go then, I guess, right?
Yeah. You can let the account sit dormant for a little bit of time, but if you wait too long, Amazon will deactivate it, and then it's harder to get it reactivated.
Yeah.
So,
is there a fee they charge straight up to get on?
Yeah, it's so for a professional Seller Central account, you pay $40 a month, and then you pay a percentage of every item that you sell plus the fulfillment fee. Now that sounds like a lot, but when you think about this, Mark, you're talking about the dollars between cost of goods and a retail price versus how brands typically sell, which is between the cost of good and a wholesale price when they're selling to the retailer.
Yeah.
So there's more dollars to play with, and that's why it can be more profitable.
Boy, pretty cool.
I know you don't think of all these little details.
You don't.
And that's why I'm in the Amazon guru.
I know that. So, all right.
And I laugh about that because I was doing a workshop once, and the person who introduced me said that I was the global expert on Amazon, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's a lot to live up to. I never thought of myself that way.
Okay, you are. Okay, so what are you doing currently? Are you still with Seventh Generation doing that, or are you working with other brands, or what?
Right. So
give me the scoop.
Yeah, I haven't been working with Seventh Generation since I started my own business in 2014. And I work with a huge variety of brands. I've worked with hundreds of brands since I started my business, mostly in the natural products industry, segment. But I have worked with bigger brands like Solo Cup, the Red Party Cups, and Snyder's Lance, which is a big snack company. But I love working with natural products.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to Mark's Amazing Barbecue Sauces,
yes.
Right? Mark at the Mike's Amazing Barbecue Sauces. Get that right, folks. Mm-hmm. Do I call you up and make an appointment with you to help me get onto Amazon? Is that what you're kind of doing?
Typically what I do is I help brands before they launch and then get them launched on the Amazon platform because of that idea that brands get lulled into this idea that it's easy to do, and they don't realize how complicated it is. And so I help brands through that process, which I call 6 points, which is having the right product at the right price and the right pack, profitability, placement, which is content, and promotion, and help them build their strategy around that, make sure they're profitable, that they have all the right content before they go, get them off the ground, and then they run with it.
Okay, let me ask you this. And you I don't know how honest you want to be with me on this, but that's up to you. Let's say I meet you and I show you my barbecue. Are you even going to give me the time of day? I'm the small vendor with a barbecue sauce. Are you even going to take time with me or what?
Yes.
And you'll charge me a consulting fee or something like that, right?
I do, and I do it on a project basis. So you might not want to work with me when you find out what the fees are.
Right.
But I will give any brand that wants to talk to me, a half hour of friendly free advice.
Right.
And I work with a lot of brands that aren't just launching too. I work with brands that are, they've gone to Amazon, they're stuck, they're having issues, they need to optimize their business, they don't know quite what to do to get back on track. I help brands with product and pack development, with multi-channel pricing strategies, because you don't want your Amazon business to mess up your pricing in the rest of the channels. So there's a lot of things that I do, but the one I feel is most valuable is to brands just launching so that they get it right and don't have to backtrack mistakes.
So I would see you at a lot of natural food shows down at Anaheim over the years.
Yes.
And so what were you doing down there? What was going on? You were looking at brands, deciding something to represent or what?
No, I never cold call brands. All my brands, all the business I've had has been 100% referral. I go to trade shows to either meet with my clients or to meet with potentially new clients that people have recommended that I talk to. At trade shows, I often have speaking engagements.
Yeah, you taught, didn't you, at the recent one? Did you teach a class down there or something?
Yeah, I taught 2 classes. What did I do? I did the business school, which they do every year, and I also did a morning session for 2 groups of Australia delegations. I have a lot of international clients because it's a great way to enter the U.S. As an international brand through e-commerce rather than trying to get into stores. And so I do a lot of work with international brands as well.
Are you out of the state quite a bit? Are you traveling cross country or out of the country?
Most of the time in the United States, but I've done 2 consecutive years, or 3. I think 3 consecutive years. I've done week-long workshops and sessions in New Zealand, and I do a lot of the work with Australia and some of my other trade organizations remotely, so it's via computer. But yeah.
Okay, so before we move into the book, a couple of more questions. What's your day like? You get up at whatever time you get up and you get on the phone right away, or are you traveling someplace? What's happening there?
Yeah, it varies.
Emailing, getting on emails or texts and all that.
It also varies a lot now post-COVID, because I used to always have day-long meetings at my clients in person. And when we had to go remote and do all this work via Zoom, a lot of brands realized that they could be more efficient if they didn't have these in-person meetings. And so my travel has lessened quite a bit since COVID.
Yeah.
But my days often start like at 6 a.m. because my Africa clients or European clients.
Even in New York, it's 9 o'clock back there, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
But they can wait for me. New York can wait till later in the day.
I like that.
But Europe and Africa can't, because it's already in the late afternoon for them. So often my days start really early so I can connect with those clients. And sometimes they go late because New Zealand and Australia is kind of at the other end of the spectrum. So every day is different depending on that. I often, unfortunately, don't have time to do the actual work for my clients on those days. And so I have to set aside Mondays and weekends to get the actual strategy work done.
Yeah,
but during the week, it's a lot of time on calls.
Why don't we talk about the book, The Amazon Roadmap?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You co-authored it with Philip Siegel?
Yes.
Great. How did you guys meet?
So Phil, we'll go back to NutPods again. He was the marketing director for NutPods when there was just 3 people in the entire company.
Oh my gosh.
So he was the guy that really built that brand through all of the tactics we're talking about, the merchandising, advertising, great content, and even off-platform things like social media and digital media. So he asked me if I would write a book with him. He would handle the marketing part and I would handle everything else, which is all the tactical, strategic part. And it worked out great. We did it together.
Does he live in the Bay Area?
No, he lives in Southern California.
Okay, so you're doing everything off Zoom, I guess, then, right? Or you're traveling back and forth once in a while, or what?
No, we just did it separately, and we would reconvene every week on our progress. And in fact, finally, I had to take a week and go up to Mendocino. I took one of the 3 dogs, and we locked ourselves in a house for a week, and I wrote the whole week because I just couldn't get it done with everything else going on.
Too many distractions. And so how long did it take to write the book?
It took about 3/4 of a year.
Yeah.
Because I would get started and I would get a good run of it done. Then trips would come up and I'd be out of town, and then getting back focused would be hard.
How did you get coaching in writing a book? I mean, how did that come about? You have to have somebody's got to tell you where to start at chapter 1 and how to start the introduction and all that kind of stuff.
Actually, we winged it. We didn't get coaching. And I have a bit of a writing background from doing some freelance newspaper work when I was much younger.
Okay.
And I've always liked to write, so I never doubted my writing ability.
Right.
But yeah, writing a book is totally different. And we really depended on the publisher to help us with the editing, which was a big deal. You don't realize how much you need to check sources and footnote and do all of those sorts of extra pieces when you're writing a book.
So was the publisher helping you with the editing as well, or did you have an editor or something? How did all that work?
We had 2 layers of editing. First layer was a very talented friend I have who has a company called Wordification, and she is just a beautiful writer. So she would take some of my writing and just tweak it a little to make it flow better. But then we had an editor that was at the publisher that did the sticky stuff of, what's the resource for this? And, let's footnote this like this. And that's the kind of thing I wasn't really an expert at. So we really needed that discipline.
Yeah. And then you referenced your friend. Was she the one that was also watching for, I don't know, punctuation and spelling and all that kind of thing?
She was. And, really, I credit her because she has such a beautiful writing talent. I credit her with the flow of it in a lot of cases.
Oh, the book was great to read. Yeah.
It's easy, isn't it?
Yeah. So with saying that, would you say this book could be used as a primer for entry into e-commerce or what? I mean,
into Amazon for sure.
Into Amazon for sure.
And Phil and I wrote it with the idea that it would be somewhat timeless. Right? So, I mean, it's 5 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we wanted it to have the basics so brands would understand what they're getting into and how to do it, even as some of the minutia changes. And it can literally change on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We see this all the time. But the fundamentals are there so that no matter who you are as a brand or what you want to do to get started, that you can use this book as your guide.
And where can one find the book?
On Amazon, of course.
Absolutely. Great.
Yeah.
So before we wrap things up, I'm going to let you do a little shout out to your husband, Brian. Is he home right now? He's not playing golf because it's too windy and cold.
It's too windy, but he'll be playing in the morning, I'm sure.
Good for him.
Yeah.
All right. And yourself, thank you, Betsy, for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. Give Brian my best, and maybe we'll do this again, right?
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
I'd like to thank Betsy McGinn, e-commerce guru and author of the Amazon Roadmap, How Innovative Brands Are Reinventing the Path to Market, for being my guest today on Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. Betsy can be reached by email at betsy@mcginnecom.com, and ecom is ECOMM.com. Thanks to Kathy and Shelby Lucchese for editing and producing, the great Ray Tyler for video. Original music by Bray. You can hear more of Bray at braymusic.com. This podcast was recorded on Friday, April 5th, 2024 at the Burlingame Public Library. The Burlingame Historical Society copyrights this recording, and no part can be copied or replayed without the permission of the Burlingame Historical Society. So until next time, everyone, see you around Burlingame. It's a small town.